Hey everybody, welcome back to Mortuary Files. My name is Rick. I was a funeral director for 35 years. I'm retired now, but I've embalmed somewhere between 5 and 6,000 bodies. Lost count. I was also a crematory operator and a funeral director, like I said, for a long time. And this fellow right over here is my brother Randy.
Yeah, that's me. I'm his brother Randy.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Mortuary Files. Today, we're going to continue our discussion because in one of our previous episodes, we talked about embalming, and I didn't know that embalming was basically just all different ways to do embalmings, all different types of embalmings.
Sure.
And this is a different one. We're going to talk about embalming. Now, this will be strictly for embalming because I'm sure we're going to talk about in a later and maybe a later episode about embalming people who met their demise in special ways.
Okay.
Like somebody was at the, you know, somebody somebody orchestrated it for him.
Yeah.
Them. Okay. And I know Rick knows what I'm talking about. We got to
Or
be
odd accidents.
Yeah, odd accidents. We have to be very careful in what we say because of the YouTube will smack me around like a rag doll. So we're going to talk today strictly about embalming someone who has already been autopsied.
Okay, we can
And
do that.
that's different than just a regular embalming.
It is. It's still using all the same chemicals, but there's a whole different process involved. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, so we talked about in the last one about you picking up the body, which is going to be basically the same, except for you're probably going to be picking them up at the coroner this time instead of at a hospital.
At the
More
medical examiner, not the
medical,
coroner.
medical. What's the
Coroner
difference?
Coroners don't do embalmings or autopsies.
I always thought a medical examiner was the one. So Quincy doing the
Quin-
autopsies was wrong.
Quincy, no, Quincy was a medical doctor. He does autopsies.
Oh, okay.
A coroner is not a medical doctor.
No.
He's only just another funeral director for a county that doesn't have a medical examiner.
Ah, okay. There. See, I learned something new. I'll
If
forget
he
it
if
in
he
10
gets one that
minutes.
he suspects was suspicious, or he doesn't understand what happened, or they died under unusual circumstances like we just mentioned, he will send them to a medical examiner.
So a coroner could be a medical examiner, but a medical examiner is not necessarily a coroner. Or is it the opposite way around?
The opposite way around. A medical examiner is never a coroner. He's a medical examiner is a doctor. He's up here.
A
A
medical
coroner is
exam.
just a coroner is just a guy that can pronounce death and say, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is what happened."
Okay. So one way or another, we're going to be picking up somebody who's done a autopsy on him.
Right.
And so up until that point, wherever he's picked up at, this is where it starts to change. Now you pick up someone who's been autopsied,
Hmm.
and usually it's from a state facility, I'm going
Right.
to assume.
State or county.
And then you're going to take them back to the funeral home.
Yes.
And then from there, it changes.
From there, it's basically the same, except that there's a lot more involved in it. For example, a lot of people don't really understand what an autopsy is. They have to get permission. The doctors or whoever will ask for an autopsy, but the family has to give the permission. Now, if it's an investigated death, the county can request an autopsy, and the family can't say no. In other words, if they're suspected to have been, foul play involved, the county's going to ask for an autopsy, and the family cannot refuse it because it's part of an investigation.
It's going to be more or less court ordered, I'm sure.
And there are cases where families request an autopsy, and the county says no. We know why he died. We're not going to pay for an autopsy because it's expensive.
And that's where they bring in Dr. Baden,
And
come in,
I don't know who Dr. Botten is, but
a very famous medical examiner who will
okay.
who's he's a medical examiner for hire on the East Coast.
Oh, okay. And that's exactly what there are, and they're here too. And if the county says no, we're not going to do an autopsy, and the family says, we want to know exactly what he died from. The family will be required to pay for that autopsy themselves. And over the years, the price of that's gone up. Today, I think it's probably $3,500 to $4,500. Some places maybe over $5,000. And once you tell a family how much they have to pay, They go, well, it's not as important to us as we thought it was. Okay, so once we get a person from a medical examiner and they're on the embalming table, at this point, they've already been autopsied, and we don't do the autopsies. Funeral directors do not do autopsies. They put them back together. But what the doctors do is they remove this cranium, remove the brain, make a Y. If you've ever heard of the famous Y incision, that's from here to here and down to their below their belly button. They open that up and they remove the rib cage.
Explain how they removed the rib cage.
Well, there's only
Right.
one way to explain it. If you've ever been in a garden and you wanted to prune your roses and you see loppers, these long-handled loppers, it's exactly what they use to cut the rib cage, loppers. Now, some of them, they have a saw. They could use a saw. It's just much easier to use loppers. Most of them use loppers, I think.
And they basically break all the bones so they can take the breastplate out.
They don't break the bones. They
Or
just cut
cut
through the
them.
bones,
Cut them.
right?
Well, yeah, but they take the
Because the
breastplate
whole
out.
chest plate is intact. They do it
Yeah,
intact. When they pull it out, it's in one piece.
yeah.
And then they remove the heart, the lungs. They remove each organ separately. They weigh it. They slice it up, examine it, um, write their report, put all that back into a plastic bag, insert all that stuff back into the cavity, sew that person back up real quick, and then call a funeral director. And a funeral director is required to put all that puzzle back together again. Okay, so once they've removed this breastplate and they do all the organs, they put all that stuff back in together or into the cavity, sew the person up and give them to a funeral director. And like I said before, funeral directors don't do embalmings. We put the puzzle back together again. And what's really weird, and I never figured this out, because we have to have a price list of how much stuff costs, we have to say embalming is this much. We can't charge extra for embalming an autopsy, but it takes almost twice as much time. So basically, you have to embalm the person with their um, cavity open. So, in order to do that, you have to pinch off the carotid and the jugular vein. You have to inject up one side and it'll come out the other, and inject the other side, hoping to get some pressure up into the face. And you have to go up inside their hollow cavity and pinch off some of those small arteries that are up there to help build pressure. So when you inject fluid into their head and their face, that it actually gets to the outside of their face because there's no way for it to build pressure. It's just running through if you don't do that.
Well, you say you have to get up into their hollow cavity. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
so I've got a bunch of little clamps and I've clamped off all this stuff. Um, and then when you are shooting the fluid down, you have to go into their femoral arteries, which are just below their groin, and you do each leg separately. Those usually turn out the best. And then you have to open up each arm. You can either open up right here, if you can find there's another one right here. There's a couple of different arteries that you can inject the fluid this way, and hopefully you can get pressure all the way down to the fingertips. And the thing to do is to find that artery that's in there, or excuse me, the vein that's in there, pinch it off so that you can build pressure also. And then when you do that, though, in order to get your arms are out like this while you're doing it, so it's almost impossible to get the hands back in a natural position. So if you ever notice somebody that's lying in the casket that died from some unusual manner, their hands are almost always down at their side.
Hmm.
If they die a natural death, their hands are usually up here like this. It's very difficult to get an autopsy body's hands back up here like this. So once all that, you do each arm separately. It's called a 6 point. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these legs. So you do a 6 point injection instead of 1 point. A 1 point's what you want. But if you can't do that, autopsy is always at least a 6 point, sometimes more. It's possible to have to do different ones, but usually 6 point. Once you get done with that, you take all those organs out and you embalm them. There's different ways to do it. Some people do it with fluid. Use dry embalming powder after I've drained all the fluids off of them and just let it soak in their own embalming powder for the whole time I'm embalming, or it's in a bucket, um, basically being embalmed with drying powder and embalming powder, which is another type of powder, but it does basically the same thing. It's hardening agent. And then that is all placed eventually back into the cavity, again with a bag, but much more compact this time. And it's all kind of smoothed out. And then we take our time and sew back this Y incision. And then the hardest thing that people have trouble with is re-sewing the head, because the incisions come right behind the ears and go all the way back behind the head. But before you do that, you have to put the cranium back on. And there are cranial caps that you can put in that hold the cranium in place. And then you put the, what's really weird is I've had the entire face, the skin and everything else laying down, completely covering over a person's face. And I've had to treat that first and let that dry with drying fluids. And then after that dries, then I can pull their face back up, bring it back over, and then sew it. Sometimes that takes a while.
So when you're embalming this person who's been autopsied
Uh-huh.
and you're trying to get embalming fluid up to the top of the head,
Hmm.
you're working in an open skull.
Oh, yeah. And it's very sharp. The bones are sharp.
And you're looking down into where the brain used to be.
Right.
Okie dokie.
I've had my hands inside of many skulls, yes.
As much as I've known about it, that's something I don't think people really realize is that when you get autopsied, you're,
Autopsy is major, major, major surgery.
yeah, oh yeah, I mean,
You are cut from, mom and dad used to have a saying for, from to elbow.
from asshole to belly
From
button and
asshole
beyond.
to,
Yeah.
you are cut deep, you're cut long, it's huge. This thing, and well, to give you an idea, to re-sew all of this, and you make one incision here, and this is a second sewing here. You can't go two different directions at once, and you always start down here, and you sew back up.
I've
I
heard,
start I start with a 4 foot long string,
yeah,
put two big knots in it, and then 45 minutes of
yeah.
this, and your arm hurts after a while when you get done re suturing an autopsy body.
So I've heard that men and women are the incision is different. Is that true?
Mm-mm,
No,
no difference.
no difference. Okay, I
No,
thought women had different than men.
no.
Okay, now go back a little step. When we die
Mhm.
in a natural death, we, for lack of a better term, can, will, may, should evacuate any bodily fluids we have within inside us, pee,
Yeah,
poo, whatever. Um, how does that? And I've also heard that when you guys are doing your work, that you may have to plug up some holes.
yeah, we do.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
that a natural thing, or is that let's wait and see? Do you just
that's a let's wait.
automatically do
That
it?
No, that's a let's wait and see thing.
Okay.
Because almost every single person that dies has some urine in their bladder,
Right.
and your all your muscles relax when you die, so your bladder relaxes. So I would say 98% of the people that die basically pee their pants. It's just what happens.
Natural thing.
Yeah, it's everybody does it. It's not, and we expect that. Um, but a much smaller percentage, probably 10%, or I don't know exactly, maybe 15%. If you've got fecal matter in your lower intestines, then we're going to have a problem, because some of that or all that's going to come out either during the time during your death process, or while you're being embalmed. And for an autopsy, all that's kind of gone because they've taken it out. I
They've
mean,
taken it all out. But
all your intestines are.
You have to get that out though, do you not? As a funeral director, you have to, as an embalmer, you have to get all that stuff out.
No, if it stays in, it's staying in. If it comes out, I got to clean it up.
Oh, I see. Okay. So the embalming fluid, when you're embalming the intestines and all that, you're putting the fluid into them. You do that with the trocar, right?
Right.
Okay. And that would go into there and would
It
preserve
at
it.
least it at least firm it up some. That's the hope.
Okay. And what about stink?
Because your bowels have stopped constricting at that point, so you're not pushing anything out anymore. And I'm not, but I've seen some people that were relaxed that pooped for 5 minutes straight, and I couldn't
Mm.
stop it. So I just left the room and came back later and cleaned it up.
And what about the stink factor if you can't get it out? Does it, the
That's
embalming?
what a lot of embalmers who think they want to be embalmers have a problem with. They can't get over the smell. There's a lot of smells involved, and
Yeah.
especially with the urine and the feces and the just old bodies that have been sick for a while have that old people smell. You have a uric smell. You have an ammonia smell, and it's just not a pleasant combination. If you start to decompose it all, that's a putrefaction smell that will turn your stomach. So there's a lot of different smells in this job.
Do you get used to?
I
Do you get
did, but a
used
lot
to
of
it?
people don't. There are a lot of people that will puke.
I mean, I come up, a dead animal, and I'm 30 feet from it, and I'm gagging my brains out.
Well, we're biological animals. We are animals. We're not plants. We're animals.
Yeah.
We may have spirits and souls and all that, but we're animals. If you've ever driven down the side of a road and saw a dog on the side of the road, been there 4 days,
He stinks.
and he looks like this,
Yeah.
swelling,
Yeah.
if we didn't embalm it, the exact same thing would happen because the gases inside your body build up. And that's what we're trying to prevent. As nasty of a subject as that is, that's the reality. So,
Any difference on, I'm going back to the stink a little bit. Any difference on on the way body odors from from an intact body to a body that's been autopsied? Are there more, are there more
yeah,
smells?
once they open up a body, the inside of the human body smells nasty. It's horrible. On the outside of a normal death, a normal body, it's just a bathing will take care of it.
When you are embalming a body that has been autopsied, you were telling me before that sometimes you may go in there and have to stop
Oh yeah,
leakers.
yeah.
Leakers.
So if for some reason you can't stop what that evacuation that I was talking about, there is called an anal plug because that's usually what we're talking about. Hopefully, you got time to let them sit there overnight and let all that get out. If you don't have time and the family wants to see them right now, we got to see them. We just got to see them. Families want to rush this sometimes. They shouldn't, but they do. And so there's a plastic plug that you actually insert manual with your hands into the rectum, and you put some glue on it, and you basically put a butt plug in them, and they go through eternity with a butt plug that stops all that.
All right. All right. Well, I hope that, and
Yummy.
this is part of Jay's questions. It's not funny, but it's ironic, I guess.
Now,
It
and
is
people
what
say,
it
well,
is.
why does it cost so much? Really, how much would you charge to do some of the stuff I just described?
Yeah. So, Jay, we hope that helped you with your questions. All right. Anything else you want to mention about embalming a body that has been autopsied?
No, except they never look as good as a body that isn't
Okay.
autopsy body never looks as good as a one that isn't.
One last question I got for it. For the families who come and view the bodies of a person who has been autopsied,
Mhm.
any cautionary touching? People want to touch the body. Any cautionary, other than we know about the kissing and that kind of stuff? Don't ever kiss a dead body because, you
Well,
never know.
not just the autopsy body, but if they were autopsied because they had a lot of facial trauma, especially they had holes in their face from some reason,
Car accident, maybe.
whatever. Yeah, don't try to touch them and kiss them on their face. because you can mess, there's wax work that's involved, and sometimes it took hours to get them to look at least this good, and people want to hug them, and and all of a sudden now this eyebrow's over here, and you
Yeah.
don't realize what they did to make them look at least that good.
And that's a subject for another body cosmetics. So what about just an autopsy body, a young person? Because you said in one other video, a young person will almost always get autopsied unless
Yeah,
the cause of death is,
yeah,
known.
yeah.
So if somebody came in and we'll call it a natural death, but they're autopsied anyways, is there any precautionary on families who come up to the body? Because like I said, people like to touch them all over.
No, other than
Not
like we
really.
said
Okay.
before, just kissing them and stuff. I don't recommend kissing the body, but other than that, you know, just be careful with them.
If they want to pet them.
Yeah.
Console them, talking to them. You know how
Mhm.
people talk to them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have. So, Jay, that's your question. Second part of your question. Always good questions from Jay, Rick.
You bet. He does.
With that, that's going to end this episode of Mortuary Files. Please join us. You can find us here on YouTube, Patreon, Spotify. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, comment, like, and find us wherever we are. Don't forget, if you got any questions for us, our email address is in the bottom. And with that, Rick,
We may not be the most entertaining people on YouTube, but you're going to get the truth here, people.
and you don't get a bunch of nasty, gory pictures, although
Yeah.
I'd like to put them up, but he tells me no.
No. You got to
With
show
that, we'll see all of you on the next episode of Mortuary Files.
Bam. See ya.
Don't you ever laugh as the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet